We had a similar issue last time.
It doesn't want to cooperate, huh?
Hopefully, any second now. Come on. I might have to fire this up again.
Okay.
What is going on? Just send a quick apology to. Oh, we're back. Oh, Jolé, you just turned up. There you go. Wow. That was the strangest thing. But we're here now. So, anyway, okay, bear with me a second. Apologize for the satellite delay there. I know that we do have California and the United Kingdom here, so it must have been something to do with the wrong satellite going past there for a moment. Anyway, so hi there, everybody. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet.
And Jolé Gabrielle here from Elevated Planet. And today we have a really wonderful show in store for you, which is heart-based. And John is going to tell us more about it.
Yeah, thank you, Jolé. Yeah, this is going to be a power-packed show today, so we are not going to delay. One of the things we're going to talk about is the Drunvalo Melchizedek, the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop that I took recently, which is why we didn't do the live show last week. So we're going to go into that in some depth, but first and foremost, we have what I regard as a complementary kind of section, which is to do with a lady called Ann Tucker, who she channels the angels. She's really, really good at what she does. And she did an interview very recently, within the last week, with Emilio Ortiz, and we've featured Emilio's work before. He's a wonderful guy. And when I was listening to this, I felt so much alignment with what the messaging was coming from the Illuminated, Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop, that I felt that we should run with this as well as the almost like the precursor to going deeper into the Drunvalo stuff. So, with that said, one of the things that we're talking about within this particular section now is about the flash of light, as the angels refer to what is coming up for the world. Something is going to happen, and this is going to change everything, everything. And this is not something that you might notice or you might not notice. Everyone will notice, and there will be no exceptions. You may have heard talk about the 3 days of darkness in the past. We've heard a variety of people talking about that over the last few years. And some of it has been rather steeped in fear, which is completely unnecessary. And when you get people trying to push fear your way, then always be very wary. But it doesn't mean that the 3 days of darkness doesn't exist. It just means that the whole rationale for it is very different. And it's something much more heart-based. As Jolé said earlier, this is what it's all about. This is what Drunvalo is all about. It's living in the heart. It's kind of like getting out of the mind, the duality of the mind, and into the unity of the heart. And this is very much about the metamorphosis that humanity will go through in the not too distant future. And how do you define not too distant future? Well, certainly within the next decade, I would be pretty certain of that. And this is another thing that is very interesting. I heard the other day from a source that I completely respect and I completely trust in the judgment because of where their connections are. And they were saying it may be before 2030 that this will actually happen. But before this happens, there will be an increase in the density. There'll be an increase in, the war energy. There'll be an increase in various other things, maybe natural disasters, who knows. But what that is all designed for a purpose, because chaos is a prerequisite for change. So sometimes you have to see these things ramping up in order for people to awaken. Because if the world around you doesn't change, why should you change? For most people, they won't. And why would you? Because you know the rules of the game. You know it may be imperfect. You may not be happy with the way the world is playing out right now, but you have a job, you have a roof over your head, you have an education for your kids or whatever, right? You kind of understand the rules of the game. But this is going to be something that cannot be ignored. And it's starting this year, and it's going to be ramping up from there. I suspect something around the US elections. and thereafter. Anyway, so if you bear with me a second, I'm going to do a share screen and we'll take you through to the first section of the interview, which is the angels being channeled by Anne during the Emilio program. And the first 4 minutes is a little section of its own. So here we go. Bear with me.
Period surrounding the flash of light. This is a period of metamorphosis. This is not simply a period without illuminative force. It is a period within which you are in stasis, in which you are suspended, in which your life force is congealed within a container provided by us, by ourselves, within which you are able to redefine who you are from within, and from which you emerge after the specific process has been completed, and you will find yourselves as you have been bodily in formation with 2 eyes and 2 ears. But you will not have the same roots or the same focus going forward. It is a transformative process. It emerges from within. There is healing that will be done. Many are concerned with this. Healing occurs, this process, but it is not instantaneous. It occurs over time as the body renews itself. It must cycle through its own evolution in each of its bodily functions in order for that which has been harmful to emerge.
During this metamorphosis, how will our relationship with each other and technology shift going forward?
There will be a great change in this shift. But what this does for humanity, it changes your perception. It alters the method by which you comprehend one another. You will see another through a new frame, not through the dialogue of the 5 senses, but through an additional gifting which will come almost instantaneously upon the shift and its completion. You become an energetic being attuned to a higher force and frequency. And from this perspective, the veil is thinner and you may see one another in more depth, in more completeness. You feel another's feelings. You know how they came to be. You feel what it is to be in their experience. And this unites you. This creates within and among you an end to loneliness.
Is it possible to say that this light that we will all experience is a upgrade to our biological systems that will allow these new senses to then come online?
It is like this, but not entirely. There will be shifts in your biology as humanity, but not immediately. This occurs over time. In evolution, you will become increasingly light as embodiment, which is what you are already, but you exist in greater density in the moment. Over time, you will become increasingly light. But for the remainder of your incarnation, you remain as you are in physicality. However, your perception of what is physical will change. You will perceive things as vibration. You will perceive a tabletop, a computer, a microphone. These things seem physical, and yet they are not. They are vibration held close by an affinity for one another. And we say that you begin to diagnose each item as, yes, physical. You can stand upon a floor and yet you can see through it. You can see into it. It becomes something more fluid within which you have the ability to create change.
Okay. So our first little, oops,
What does it mean to be...
excuse me. Get that back a touch. Okay. So Okay, so one of the things I just wanted to talk about there, this is the angels are describing this as the flash of light. It's labeled, I've labeled it up as the solar flash, and there's good reason for that, because I believe, based off the sources, that the flash of light does come from our own sun. And that is the way that it is supposed to be. And after that, things will be changed. And part of this metamorphosis for humanity, it follows the density, as we were talking about just before we launched this. But what will happen is that we will start to regain powers that we lost about 13,000 years ago, which are these psychic powers that they're talking about, the ability to feel each other's feelings, to understand the impact on each other. Now, the good thing with that is that once you have that, it's an end to wars, because you understand that by hurting others, you're hurting yourself. Whereas at the moment, we have that separateness, that mind-based separateness. And really, again, as with Drunvalo, we're talking about the fact it's coming out of the duality of the mind and into the unity of the heart. And this is very much about what this is also talking. You know, we were not going to need cell phones anymore. There's no way. If you go back to the times of Atlantis, they didn't have cell phones because they didn't need them, because they could project their thoughts to each other. They would feel each other's feelings. They knew there were ways of communicating that went way beyond. So I think this is something that, again, we will cover that in a little bit more depth, but it's all about unity consciousness and getting deeper into that unity consciousness. So that's all I want to say on that little section first. Is there anything you want to add, Jolé, before we go back in for part two?
No, I think you summed it up nicely, John. You know, it's really all about the heart, you know, and moving from that space. So let's see what else Anne has to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
More fluid, within which you have the ability to create change.
What does it mean to be in the void, and how will it be affecting our evolution?
The void is an experience you will be having upon the execution of the flash of light which is coming. It will be as if all has separated from itself and you are at once suspended in mid-air in some circumstances, yes, as if all has become quiet and still. And you will find yourselves separated and segregated from one another in your own experience, isolated, alone. All will be cared for. All are well. Do not fear for those you love. They are also held. Within this experience, you are brought to an invitation. You are raised to a frequency, a higher pitch of being, and are given the opportunity to move forward into, to release and allow this experience to unveil for you. Some will not. Some will find fear during these experiences. They will not understand what is happening. They will wish for themselves to find safety. They will not welcome in these illuminative forces, and they will choose to become as they were. They are not forever disregarded by the light. They merely will wait until an opportunity rises within for them to reveal who they truly are. But for those who lean in, who desire and contain the will to experience this evolution, they will find a quiet voice within which has always been there, which is an aspect of their truth. It is what they are as a higher expressed being. This then moves through, up and through, and emerges from within you and becomes your new voice. It is a higher and increased capacity for light that you bring to the planet. It comes from within. It is an aspect already there which is dormant within you. It is in this lifetime that you have been born with two aspects within. This has not been thought of before. This is done differently now for yourselves. You have brought yourself incarnated with two aspects at once. The higher vibration aspect of who you are will contain all you've been through, all aspects of personality, velocity that are formed by life, your memories, your relationships will all carry onward into this new voice. However, your perspective of all things will shift, more broad, more complete, more compassionate, more loving. You become this. When you experience the flash of light, all will change within you, and it becomes a unique dialogue between persons. There is no longer the karmic constriction which you have experienced internally, all which you have laid in your path as harmful, as suffering, as difficulty. This no longer exists. It is for the purpose of learning that you have it now. This is why this occurrence of time is so precious for your own healing. It is a dialogue, very concrete, within which to mold your own understanding. But when you evolve into the higher vibration that comes, that is coming, that we have already seen, you will emerge without those structures. You will become more evolved. It will be easier for you to relate to one another from the perspective of peace. However, the higher mind must change. The greater the velocity of love that exists within the mind of humanity today, the brighter your future will become.
Okay, so that's the next little pause point. And here we are. Right, so really interesting about the 3 days of darkness, this kind of principle that has been talked about for the longest time. And it does appear that it may well be part of the flash of light somehow. It's kind of like whether it precedes it. I think that seems to be certainly the way that Anne herself felt about it, is that it's something that comes before the flash. And this is kind of a cocoon phase. And it's a beautiful thing, as you'll hear Anne talk about it a little bit later. So this is nothing to be feared. This is actually part of a shift, because we talk about the void that exists between the third and the fourth dimension. And so there has to be a transfer upwards in frequencies, because in the third dimension, we exist within a certain vibrational range of energy. And the fourth dimension operates at a higher level. So during that time, there's some changes have to occur. So the way that this unfolds, and again, Anne gets into this a little bit further into this, so I'm not going to go too deep into that at this stage, but it is about a shift in dimensional vibrations that takes us to a higher level, which is more steeped in the high frequency emotions like love, joy, happiness, and further away from fear, anger, division energy, hatred, judgment. All those kind of things are starting to be left behind. There's still an element of duality in the fourth dimension, but nevertheless, there is less duality. It is less extreme. It is taking us closer to that time, which would be the 1,000 years of peace, which follows in the age of Aquarius, which is kind of what we're into, that transfer of periods right now. So this changes everything, but we still have a choice. This is a free will planet. Some won't understand what's going on. They'll want to go back to the old construct of the planet as they knew it, and want to be in the third dimensional energies because of the fear that it creates, the fear of the uncertainty, wanting the safety. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of the way that some people will react to it, and there will be choices around that. But if you actually go with this, you get it's an increase in love and capacity for light. It's the and we have these two aspects that reside within, and this is something that is unique to us right now at this period in time, because we are going to go through this change. So we will have a choice. We don't have to accept the fourth dimension as our future individually, because individually we will have a choice. But if you truly understood what the nature of the fourth dimensional energies are all about, then unless you really feel drawn to be in a lower dimensional vibrational energy, then the fourth dimension, as I say, that's more of the high frequency emotions of love, of joy, of working together within a community spirit, all that kind of good stuff. So, Jolé, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, you speak often about the light and the dark and the duality, and I think it's really important that we make that simple for people. If you look at it, even though it's intangible energy, let's look at the science behind it, meaning the pieces and parts of our body, right? John, you told me, which I thought was fascinating, the body is only 1/3 of the process.
Right,
We
right.
know that it starts in the spirit, right? We have the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. I'm sure there's way more, but let's just condense it to that.
Right.
And we know that once we allow for the body or the mind, excuse me, the brain to calm down, right brain, the left brain is the logic. Once we give it the information that it needs, it will allow our body to relax so that we can sit in our heart and then move through. So when you think about saying affirmations or you're thinking about positive energy coming in, be very specific. Send the programming to the brain. You're doing your meditation, you're going to sit in the center of your head and you're going to go, all right, get acquainted with your body, right? Your brain.
Yeah.
We've got the prefrontal cortex, we've got the dorsal, we've got the ventral. Maybe we don't need to know that, but we know we have a cerebral cortex. This is the processing of the emotions, decision making, feelings. All right, this is important, right? Because the brain is going to muck it up for you. So we got to know here, we program, we say, okay, this is the affirmation because I'm trying to get here. So this is the brain. This is the affirmation. This is who I am. And then boom, we sit in the body and we begin to feel. We begin to have that GPS because we've given the brain the GPS coding. And now we let that heart, which is what, the car or the drive, whatever you want to say, I don't know, the engine, but we got to let it know where it's going. So that's the thing to make simple. So work with your brain in terms of, hey, integrate, let's get on board. I know I have feelings here, but look, the dark, I don't want any part of that. So it moves throughout the body. So just for me, that's how I simply can come out of a negative experience is I go, wait a second, my brain is, you know what, I need to get back in there and give you a whipping, or, maybe not that, but just I need to get back up in there and get you right. We need to reprogram that so that I can, what you talk about, that relaxation state of the body, and then the message come in easily. So I hope that wasn't too convoluted, but there's a science-based way to do it to help you move forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that because one of the things that Drunvalo does with the workshops and his books and everything is very much about, putting these in logical terms in ways that people can understand it, because he wants to, appeal to his left brainers as well as the right brainers. The left brainers got further to go to make this journey into the heart. And so therefore he knows the importance of exactly as you describe it there, Jolé. So great. Yeah. Okay. Right. Next part. Here we go.
You are all that is required to live on earth. You contain all of the necessities. You are complete as you are. There is and will be nothing which you require to exist. You will become a self-fulfilling organism. Thus, you will not have lack. There is no poverty when you always have what you are. You become the essence of life. Life pours through you. You are a creative force. You may magnify what is, reduce what is not. You may create harmony where there is dysfunction. You have the ability to metabolize through living. You need not eat unless you are called to. You can live without fear. There's nothing harmful that is in dialogue with the expression of a life on earth. This does not mean you cannot be wounded, for the body is flesh. The body may be injured and then healed again. The body may reform itself. You will have many who are gifted in the process of keeping your earthly beings functioning well. But know yourselves to be orchestrated differently within the body. It will not be an experience as you have been having, where all things must be consumed for satisfaction. It will become an essence of what you are.
So the earth in the future will only allow incarnations of a higher degree or a higher frequency than now?
Correct. Thus, all souls who choose not to undergo the shift in frequency at this time, they are offered no judgment of any kind. They are not doing anything wrong. They may simply decide for themselves that their path of growth is best answered in a karmic construct. And when this is the case, they will live their life in this incarnation to its fulfillment. And when they pass on, they will migrate to a new system, planetary system designed for this purpose, which is enabling them to live on within the karmic construct they have chosen. But it will not be Earth.
Okay. So get myself back on the screen. There we go. Right. So interesting points. Karma is coming to an end on planet Earth. So this new cycle that has begun already, but is going to take some drastic changes along the way. We're going to see an upshift in the chaos over these next years. We are going to get this solar flash, or whatever it's going to be, the 3 days of darkness. This is a cocoon phase. It takes us up a dimension. It's incredible, right? Now, I know that this sounds fantastical. I know this sounds like too much for many. And all I would say is, if that's the case, then just think of it as a science fiction type of idea, by all means. But the fact is that you can't unhear what you hear, right? So if things start to happen, the ideal circumstances are, okay, well, maybe if this is all deluded nonsense, then it never happens. And you can look back and say, well, that really was deluded nonsense. Or if things do start to happen, rather than drop into fear, you think, well, actually, this is nothing to fear, because this is something that you can rejoice about, because this is giving you an opportunity to live life so much better in that world of unspeakable beauty that we talk about quite frequently. But karma comes to an end on planet Earth. So we're in this recycling mode on planet Earth, where we keep coming back with karmic plans as to how to grow, how to learn. But that's no longer be once the Earth is in fourth dimensional energy, and ultimately fifth dimensional energy, because I believe that's ultimately where we're going, then it won't uphold this karmic kind of circumstance. So you would go to a different planetary system. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Either way, an opportunity to travel. So I believe that the 1,000 years of peace is what begins at this age of Aquarius. We've talked about the age of the golden race. I think this is where we're heading right now. There will be no more lack, and our creative powers come truly on stream. And, you know, this is a really important point here, which is that you will be creating from heart-based unity consciousness. And as Drunvalo often says, is that, you know, if you're creating and you're using it as mind-based energy, you're doing it through duality, which means that you may actually succeed in manifesting something that you're trying to manifest, but at the same time, there's a shadow aspect that sits behind it, which may well come back to surprise you and be the exact polar opposite of what it was you wanted. When you're actually creating from heart-based consciousness, that does not exist. You simply achieve what it is you are looking to achieve. So, okay, now this is a really interesting point about the consumption of food and drink, that it becomes unnecessary. Now, this is something I've first read about maybe 3 years ago, going through Dolores Cannon's work, because she came across people who were what are known as breatharians, who are people who do not consume food or drink. And there are, I don't know how many there were. At the time that Dolores was last reporting on it, which must have been at least a decade ago, probably about 15 years ago, there were known to be 30,000 of them around the planet. People who don't consume food or drink. And how is that even possible? Well, this is a really important point. And Drunvalo talks about this, as I say, there's a lot of crossover between what the angels talk about here through Anne and what Drunvalo is talking about. But certainly the breatharian side of things, Viola Rose, who actually administered the course, the Illuminating the Heart workshop, actually did the breatharian thing for 2 months, decided not to do it permanently, but for 2 months, she survived without food or water. How do you do it? Well, it's all down to prana. I'll come back to that. But I'm gonna just pause at that point because we've got a little bit more to get through before we get it deeper into the Drunvalo workshop. So, Jolé, what would you care to add?
So, the brain heart coherence is an important part of this. We speak about that.
Yes, it
so
is.
I would say that part 2, like, break down and think about it like this. The brain really likes talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk to the brain, but the heart enjoys breathing. So when you're in a meditative state, you'll spend some time doing the reprogramming of the brain, but you want to drop that energy down into the heart and always begin to turn the cells in your body heart-shaped. And once you do that, you can see your breath sort of wrap around your organs, if you want, or bring in the breath and the love into each part of you that just exists. It doesn't matter. And I want us to remember that healing or transformation sometimes or oftentimes takes place in the ether or in the spirit or in this gray matter before it is then moved throughout the body. So it is important to some degree that we align this and we work to align this in our meditations. So if you want to know where to begin, meditating, creatively visualizing your heart and your brain in coherence with one another so that you can get in alignment with your purpose. So that's kind of just what I wanted to lay on the table.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jolé. That was lovely. And we are going to go to the last little section here that is 4 minutes. So bear with me a second. Oh, and just for your edification, this is when Anne is actually in person talking to Emilio. She is not channeling at this point. She's talking about her experience with the angels. So hence we have them on the screen now rather than when she's actually doing the channeling. So here we go.
They've talked about there will be a period where we will have no communication, where it's like almost like all the communication is down. It's a period of, and we're meant to go internal. We're meant to go quiet. And during that period, they said, so when we go through this period of darkness, they said it's really important that we that we go internal, that we stay in love. Don't get fearful or worried about the way that it's dark outside. Like it's gonna, even if it means like there's no moon or there's no stars, like I don't know, it might be that dark. I have no idea. But they said that to stay grounded, to stay in love, to stay in your own vibration, basically like close the blinds, close the windows, like just stay in your own vibe. Then they said you will start to feel heavy in the body. And when you start feeling heavy in the body, they say, go ahead and lie down. And this is going to be the process of releasing the karma. So they said, lay down. And that is when we enter the cocoon state. And basically they've called it as like a heavy blanket going over us. It'll feel like pressure. Your body will feel physically heavy. And and I can relate to this because when I first started channeling the angels, I felt them like it was heavy, and that's the difference in frequency. So as we're trying to lift up and move out of this density and into a higher frequency, everything that's heavy in us is going to pull, is going to feel like weight in our body. So imagine all your wounding, everything that you're carrying right now, you're going to be trying to lift out of it and it's just going to pull on you. So you got to just breathe through it, just lay there, just let it happen. We don't have to do a thing. They're going to do all of it. All we got to do is chill. So just lay down and chill out. They want us to be, if you can stay like somewhat aware, they want us to be as much as we can to kind of be aware. And as images come up, as memories come up, if you feel like crying, cry. If stuff rises, let it. Just don't resist. That's the key thing, to just trust the process and just let it flow through you.
When it occurs and people are tuning into the mainstream media outlets, what are some things that you think we should be wary of around their messaging around
what's coming about, or when this happens? I'm hoping that it will be a thing that people who are on a spiritual path will be either listening to their own hearts or will have heard people talking about this and will know that this is the time to just go internal. The big message is stay in love, stay out of fear. And then I'm also hoping that those of us who are on the path who are around others can say, okay, just chill out, stay in love, get out of fear, you know, go internal. But there will be people who are it's really about head versus heart. Those of us who are trying to solve it up here are going to be really panicked, because what we do when we're up here is we say, okay, there's a problem I need to solve. I am responsible for fixing this, and I don't know what to do. And that creates enormous anxiety in people. It's the feeling of I have to do something and I don't know what it is. That is a recipe for anxiety. And so people will feel an enormous amount of it. Like, how do I fix this? Is this going to be dangerous? Do I have to protect myself or others? Or they're going to be running around trying to figure it out. And that's going to create and that anxiety will be resistance to the experience. So they will have to just get through it, and it will stop and get to the other side. And then all of a sudden, the angels have said that this will be the moment that everybody looks back on and say, this is the moment that everything changed. So we will be changed by this. But those of us who are open, all you got to do is be open. And like I said, there is no judgment in that, because anybody who is not open in the moment, they have the rest of their lives to open, right? They will come through it, and then they will notice, oh, wow, you have changed and I have not. How do I do that? And that, I think, is why there are so many light workers on the planet, because as we come through this, we'll be on the other side. There's going to be a massive rise in interest in spiritual things as people are trying to figure out, like, wow, your life seems to be pretty awesome. You're kind of glowy. How do you get the glow? You know what I mean? They're going to be looking for it, and they're going to be looking for help. So I think it's going to be an amazing time of opening.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ann Tucker. She's very good. She's very good. And that interview as well, when the newsletter goes out tomorrow, we'll have a link to the entire interview, which I think was maybe about an hour 45, an hour 50 minutes. So this is just 15 minutes out of an entire interview. And it's really interesting. So, you know, I'd encourage you that if you find this something you want to dig a little deeper into, then make sure that you're on our distribution list, and you can get on our distribution by emailing me at johndrew@elevatedplanet.life. So that last little section there, the awareness, allowing the flow and trusting the process. And it can be easier said than done, because, you know, I've been on this planet for 64 years and I've never experienced anything like what is going to happen. And it's unlikely to be this year. It's unlikely to be maybe for a few years ahead, but certainly I believe it's highly likely to happen within this decade. So, you know, when it does happen and you're presented with something that is totally different to anything that you've ever experienced, anything that you've ever come across, how do you trust that process? Well, if you've been studying these things for a long time and you know that it's coming, you can get excited about it. I'm excited about the change. I'm excited about what's coming. Even the chaos that's going to come in advance, you know, it's lining us up for something that is going to be a world of unspeakable beauty that is coming our way. So it's trusting that process. It's going within. It's staying in the heart, staying in that heart-based consciousness, which is where we are going to be heading. We stay out of fear and we do not resist the changes. Allow things to come through us and stay open. This is the moment that everything changes, and it's time to get excited. So, Jolé, what would you care to add on that last little section there before we get into Drunvalo?
I think she was really masterful at how she's explaining it. And she's just really saying, you don't want to mess with the brain in terms of getting into the weeds there. That's not the place. You tell the brain what to do, you move into the body, and then you love. And through loving, you have a field, right? Our aura layer. And when you're giving that out, it's not always like it's going to come back. You might have chaos in the beginning when you start to see your vibration and energy change. Nevertheless, at the same time, as you move into this practice with consistency, you begin to see the love really take hold. So it's really about working with your brain by giving it, programming it. You drive that bus. But in the heart, allowing for your intuition and your spirit to work through you. So yes, Ann Tucker is beautiful, beautiful soul. And what she has to say is very valuable.
Yeah, Absolutely. As she says, light workers are here for a reason, to
Yes.
help to flag this up, because we're supposed to know about this. We're not supposed to go into this blind. And the more people know about it, even to the extent that they think it's deluded nonsense at this point in time, the fact is you can't unhear it. And when
Mhm.
things start to happen, you're going to be more aligned and ready to accept it, because you will understand all of a sudden why. You may have thought it was deluded nonsense, and then you come back to it and say, no, actually, hang on a second. This really is real. And actually, it's something to look forward to. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it will help people to get away from the potential for the fear. Okay.
Yes. But look for the synchronicities as well. And they say fear is what? I don't know, a false evidence appearing real. So just try and remember that, because what fear is asking you to do sometimes is face it. And once you do, it resolves itself, or else it's just an illusion. And
Yes.
some of the ways that we can face it is going internal.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's an inside job, as you often tell us, Jolé. So, Drunvalo's Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop. 4 days is the workshop. It took me about 7 days because I took it at a reasonable pace because of the way that it is presented. It's a program that you just kind of like take it a day at a time, and you can take your time over it, and then you can liaise with Viola Rose every day. So you're effectively part of a class that she ran back in June. And it's great. It's a great way of doing it because you feel like you're there with the other 9 participants. But so it kind of gives you more of a little mini community feel, and they're fascinating characters in themselves as well. And Viola Rose is a brilliant person at putting across this. Is a reason why she is one of 100 people around the planet that has been selected by Drunvalo to put this program out there. And what is it about? Well, it's about getting out of the duality of the mind and into the unity of the heart. But it's also about us opening up to technology that used to be things that we used to understand. If you went back to the cycle before the one that the one that finished at the time of Atlantis around 13,000 years ago, less than 13,000 years ago, that ended with cataclysm. Now, I was going to read you a piece from the book, but we're running a bit short of time. But this is the book. I'll come back to this. But it kind of gives you a real clue of why we need to go through this. His books are amazing, and they do appeal to left brainers, definitely, because that's kind of how he works. He explains things from a technical perspective as well as from a right brain perspective. And this one also is also a prerequisite for actually undertaking the course. So if you feel interested in this, Viola Rose runs this course. To do the version that I did cost $333. It is probably the best $333 you will ever spend in your life. But at the same time, I have to say, you have to be on a spiritual path. You have to be drawn to this. You read the books, you see how that sits with you. And if it feels like it's something that it would appeal to you, I would say unreservedly go for it. We will talk in more depth about this over the coming weeks, but we're slightly going to be hamstrung for time. One of the things I remember, if you go back to, I think it was about the end of of last year, we had a program which we featured Lee Harrison, the Z's. And the Z's have often said, they've talked about the enslavement of humanity and the fact that we've been limited to about 20% of our capacity. What this Illuminating the Heart workshop, oh, no, hang on a second. It's not the Illuminating Heart, is it? It's, anyway. It's escaped me for the moment. Anyway, the entire workshop is really about getting back into that 80% that we should have had all along, but we haven't had. We've been kind of cut off from it entirely. We don't even realize what we're capable of. So this workshop opens things up that you can't even begin to realize that we're actually capable of. So you kind of suddenly understand why people say, from a spiritual perspective, we don't have any limitations, because when you go through that workshop, you realize we don't have any limitations. We're so much more than we've been conditioned and programmed to believe. So Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop gets you into that state where you can start to uncover. Now, I've got to say, we covered a lot of ground. It was the unity breath meditation, going into the sacred space of the heart where you can access the Akashic records, going into the tiny space within the heart, the beams of light that we all have access to, but we've effectively cut off from, the breathing of prana, the getting into the alpha state, opening your own makaba, but from the heart, which is really important, and creating from the heart as well. And breaking down belief patterns that encourage limitation and getting to zero. Now, when we talk about zero, we're talking about, we talked about getting to zero, and we did the Ho'oponopono one recently. We were talking about the fact that Dr. Hugh Lin, where one of the things he used to talk was trying to get back to this position of zero, where there is, there's no stress, there's no pressure, everything is just flowing. And this is really what this is about. Now, the idea of prana, this is exactly the same as Stephen Greer talks about in terms of this energy field. That Tesla identified this many, many decades ago, and it was all ruthlessly suppressed because the utilities and those who were investing in the utilities didn't want people receiving free energy, but it's all around us. And you can draw it into your own body. Like we have our own prana tubes, but we have to learn how to do this. And you have to learn how to do it through this particular workshop, because this is not something you can just read in a book and do, just work it out for yourself. You have to go through this. You have to go through this. And it also gives you somebody to whom I can go to Viola Rose and ask her questions. We did our Zoom session after I'd finished with it, so I could chance to talk this through. And I know that I can go, and we're going to get her back on, because one of the things that's really interesting about Viola Rose is that she had 2 months doing the breatharian thing where she didn't eat or drink, as I mentioned earlier. I want to get her on the show again to talk about that experience, what it is like, how it works, because, as a mainstreamer, you'd think that is impossible. It's like going on a hunger strike and waiting to die, but it's not like that at all. I mean, and I know that there's been medical studies done over people who don't eat and drink, and they've been found to be very healthy, because they are breathing in prana. So let's get into that a little bit deeper. Let's wait till we get Viola Rose to sort of like dig into that. Now, here's something I was talking earlier today to Chris Stiles, who is our friend who does the mathematical blueprinting of everyone, anybody that cares to dig under the surface and understand what their matrix looks like, their numerical matrix. So Chris and I were talking about Drunvalo and digging a little bit under the surface of who he is. And we know he's a special person because he was a soul exchange walk-in, 10th of April, 1971, but 72. But he's now 83 years old. His original incarnation was born in 1941. Now, here's a point of interest, and as and when our good friend we've got Sean the Shaman, who is an Elevated Planet community member, and she's a very special person. And she got to meet Drunvalo back in 2006 in a very, very random kind of way. She had no idea who he was. She would be very interested to know that his pre-soul exchange walk-in name was Bernard Perona. So that I think you'll find of interest, because that exchange that took place between them, which was something quite magical, out-of-body type of experience, he introduced himself as Bernard because, you'd imagine that he didn't want to, he's a man who's very much in demand, put it that way. And he just, you can imagine he has to be slightly careful about when he's out and about. But anyway, so that is a point of interest. And this is all about going from the duality of the mind into the unity of the heart. And one of the reasons that this is incredibly important right now is the depletion of the Earth's magnetic field, which we spoke about a few weeks ago when we were talking about Drunvalo's work. And there's an image that I will share with you right now, because this really tells you what the nature of the issue is. So here we go. Right. So here, this is measured in NTs, which is, of course, the nanoteslas, they're called. And it's a way of measuring a magnetic field. So this is the magnetic field of the Earth, which has been dropping significantly. And the magnetic poles have been moving. And as you can see, the blue area, which is over Brazil, over Chile, over Peru, over, stretching down into Argentina, and a few other, Colombia will be under there as well. This is an area where the field is significantly depleted. And what happens there is that the Earth's magnetic field defends us from a lot of cosmic rays that are out there and things that could do us harm, radiation, different forms of radiation. So I think that what we will see is that the rates of cancer and the likes in the Latin American area, once these things start to get published, we will see there is a spike there. Now, how can we get over this? Well, actually, we all have our own electromagnetic field as purely a case of who we are. So I'm going to just switch this off for a second. But certainly, I mean, if I show you, this is the Drunvalo book that I mentioned earlier, which is Living in the Heart. If you look at that person, that's actually the image there, that's a typical toroidal field that we all have. It's more powerful when you're living in the heart rather than in the mind. It becomes a lot more powerful, and we can accentuate this field. And by doing that, then you won't be affected. It's as if the Earth's magnetic field was as strong as ever. So the really important point about this, apart from the fact it's just life enhancing anyway, and gets us to the new consciousness level that we're supposed to get to, is that it will act as a defensive layer against any of this radiation that is excess radiation that might come our way because of the continuing Earth depletion. Because that image that you just saw was from 5 years ago. What it looks like now, I'm not quite so sure, but we know there's been ongoing changes. But we also know that governments and national media are not really talking very much about it. There's plenty of information you can find. Check it out on YouTube, the geomagnetic reversal, and you will find a lot of information out there from a scientific perspective. And I know we did cover some of this off a few weeks ago, so go back and double check on the one that we put out there, because there was some very scientific information, as well as also what Drunvalo himself had to say about it. So really, I suppose that, that's the point, is that when we are sick, our electromagnetic field is weakened. When we're healthy, it means that it is strong. And, this living in the heart idea, it becomes very strong. So if we're stuck in the 3D density, if we're stuck in fear, if we're stuck in anger, if we're stuck in all these things that we're often encouraged towards, then that is depleting. Love is the answer to everything. And we're not just talking about the physical body here, because as Jolé mentioned earlier, there's also, as they described in the course, they described it as the emotional body and the mental body. And each of those is 1/3 of who we are. So if all we have a focus on is the physical body, that's only 1/3 of who we are. And all issues that come along from a medical perspective, it's because these things are out of balance. It's one of the things that Jolé helps us to do, is to rebalance those energies so that everything flows in the way that it should flow. And also Billy Carson, that we did some featured on our show about 8 months ago, and he was talking about the Merkaba in that as well. This Merkaba light vehicle that we all have access to, but you have to go through this kind of course, because that takes you there in the safest way possible. Because there's other ways of activating it as well. You can activate it from the mind, and even a lot of the shamans do that already on the planet, and have done for the longest time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because these people are at a very high spiritual level, so they can do it in a way that is safe. But that's because they practiced for many decades to be able to activate the Merkaba, which is like the number one way of doing it, and then this is number two way of doing it. This is the one for us. That's the one that is safe. So anyway, I'm not going to ramble on any more about that. Now I am going to bring Jolé in for your thoughts.
I am here, but I'm going to stay unseen so that we can go into the meditation, because that's a great setup for us to get into coherence and alignment with our heart and our brain, and learn how to do that on a regular basis. So in the moment, when you feel those feelings, boom, you have tools that will help you get back into harmonization. I like to call it harmony, because balance, you think about balance, right? You ain't moving. Because in order to stay balanced, you gotta do that thing to where you're moving up and down to stay in that place. So when you harmonize and integrate, you can move. So let's put our feet flat on the floor. Make sure you're sitting someplace comfortable with back support, so you don't have to focus on that while you're creatively visualizing. Put your hands, palms face up on your thighs. For those of you laying down, you know the drill. Put your feet flat on the floor for the first part of the meditation. We want you to close your eyes and then begin to breathe with the rhythm of your body. I just want you to tap in. This is your body. You are in control. You have the influence and the power to guide your body, mind, and spirit in the right direction. We need the knowledge and the wisdom. So as you bring your awareness into the center of your chest, I want you to command all of the cells in your heart throughout your body to turn heart-shaped. And this is the first way we can start to feel love and fortify that aura layer. So as we connect with the aura layer, we're breathing, we've turned our blood cells, our atoms heart-shaped. We want to pull in our aura layer to be 1.5 feet around us. This is our personal space. We call our higher self back at a comfortable distance above our crown, and we want to make sure that our higher self is standing in the power position. And we root and ground ourselves with the grounding cord of a natural earth element. It is 6 inches in diameter. Visualize this, of a natural earth element. Is it going to be a beam of light, tunnel of water, a rope, a tree trunk? Sometimes I use a quartz crystal. Whatever is of Mother Earth, create that 6 inches in diameter and see that connected to that first chakra between your sit bones, and visualize that moving down through Mother Earth, all the way into her core. There's the lithosphere and the crust of that, and then the asthenosphere, and then you get into the core of Mother Earth root and feel her love. Breathe with the rhythm of your body and just take a minute and connect with Mother Earth. And give gratitude. She feeds, she shelters, and she clothes you. Now, call in your golden rose-shaped scrubbing bubbles, because we must clean off our grounding cord to be brought into the present moment. So allow those to do what they do on your grounding cord. As you bring your awareness back to your heart, you take a breath in, you exhale, and now we're going to start working with the center of the head. So we're going to sit in the center of the head, but we're going to focus in on the prefrontal cortex. This is where decision-making, feelings, emotions, all of that is processed. So I want you to just feel what it feels like. Just relax and just breathe with the rhythm of your body as you sit in the center of your head. You and I both know there's a lot of gunk in here. We don't want any of it anymore. None of it. We want new feelings, new choices, new ways of making decisions that support our journey and our purpose. So that's exactly what we're going to take a minute to tell our brain. Look, I love you. Thank you so much for being here for me and helping me. But there's a lot of gunk. So we're going to clean you out and reprogram you. And this is how I want you to behave from here on out. And send all the rest of this gunk down my grounding cord. Okay, so take a minute and do that. A few seconds while it is commanded that there is a golden sun placed above your head by the divine creator of all that is. Positive life force energy pulsating through this sun, cosmic and divine. So while you're programming your prefrontal cortex and cleaning it out, and you're this from the center of your head, and your grounding cord and that connection to Mother Earth is being clean and cleared, bringing you into the present moment. I want you to just breathe with the rhythm of your body. And clearly see these things while you tell your brain what it is to do. Now we're going to take a deep breath in and exhale. And we're going to open our crown like we would the lens of a camera first. And we're going to bring that golden sun down and allow it to saturate the brain, the folds, all the pieces and the parts of the brain, the pituitary, the pineal gland, the limbic system, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the medulla oblongata, and everything in between, the corpus callosum, the tissue between the skull and the brain. You feel it all, okay? It solidifies those affirmations and that programming that you just gave it into the brain. As you breathe with the rhythm of your body and you visualize that gold light moving down the spine, lighting up each vertebra on its way down, as it then begins to move down that grounding cord. And as that gold light cascades down that 6 inches in diameter grounding cord, all those scrubbing bubbles begin to fall away into Mother Earth, turning into positive creative life force energy for anyone to use. Take this visualization all the way down to its roots. As you focus on breathing with the rhythm of your body as well. And from a heart-centered space, I want you to go ahead and see yourself where you want to be. I want you to see that as you open your heart and you send loving vibrations out into your aura layer. So open your heart like you would the lens of a camera. And just like you see those heart emojis when somebody's on live, you're going to send that out into your aura layer, and it's going to reach a critical mass and then push out into the world, into your environment, reaching your toroidal field, lighting that up. Lighting up the pyramid with the capstone that is on top of the toroidal field. Locking in to the ley lines of Mother Earth. And that unlocks the beam from the heavens that comes down through Mother Earth, through the heavens, through the capstone, through your toroidal field, through your higher self, through your aura layer, through your crown, all the way down through your body, following the path of the spine, moving down the grounding cord, inside of it, fortified by this white light, making sure that the walls of your grounding cord stay solid. Intangibly so, but at least solid. And you're receiving the messages not only from the divine, but from Mother Earth as well. You are connected. This is brain and heart coherence. Connected to the divine life force energy, cosmic, of the divine creator of all that is, and to the 3D world we live in, which is Mother Earth. So our creativity can channel and inform our reality, and our heart and mind stay aligned. So as you take a deep breath in and exhale, I want you to go ahead and close your heart chakra and let all the love settle in around you. Go ahead and close your crown like you would the lens of a camera, but just know that white light penetrates. Take another deep breath in and exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jolé. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and I just feel this tingling. I could feel it. It's like all the way around here. Started off with the prefrontal cortex, and I could feel it. It almost felt like it was like almost snowing, like this down in through my body, and
Yes.
nice, very nice.
Let's get deeper. Like meditation is fantastic. Like you say, you have the breath. How powerful, right? There's also but sometimes I wind up, if I'm not given an assignment or a creative visualization, I'm like, what am I going to have for dinner? So the creative visualization allows us to take the power back. Because
Yes.
trust me, others are creatively visualizing in your brain. The
Yes.
TV, the newspaper, the movies, your job. They're creatively visualizing in your brain for you. So take the power back.
I
Know
like
yourself.
that's a really good explanation of it, and it does show the power of it to really be able to create the visualization that takes you on this journey to where you want to go, rather than what you're about to eat when you're finished doing your meditation, right?
Yes. Yes. So, I like to call it an active way of praying, of getting your message to the universe of what it is you want to accomplish. So that's what this is really all about at the end of the day, is because it's out there, you have a purpose. And believe it or not, it's right here at the eyelash. It's in you and all outside of you. So if we can align with it, it gets easier.
Yes, it does. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So yeah, and we will pay more attention over time to the workshop again, because again, I think we're going to get Viola Rose on here before too long again, because I'm really interested in going through this breatharian, and it's not just that. There's other things as well that I think that she could bring real value to us, to the community. So I think we're gonna, and for anybody who's curious, you can always check out Viola directly herself at violarose.com. So a pretty simple one to find. Or you can go on to rememberingtheheart.com, which is the Drunvalo workshop where all 100 of his facilitators around the world are actually listed there. So if, for instance, you wanted to be there to go to an in-person one, which might be more local, then you can do that as well. The course that I did was fantastic because you can work around your life, whereas to actually be able to take the time to travel, to stay there, gives you a more, if you like, an in-depth experience. But at the end of the day, it's far more expensive for a start, but it also takes a chunk out of your life, which not everybody has the ability to do that. I mean, say for instance, with you, Jolé, you've got 2 kids, you've got your mom. So with the best will in the world, we can't always just abandon these things and just go and do it. So I think that what Viola Rose has come up with there is really a really good way of facilitating it. And it's done is it's made me into an initiate. I could focus on this for the next 2 years, and every day it'll get stronger. And that's the beauty of it. You've got the area, I know what to focus on now. I know what we're capable of. And I just have to ingrain it and build it. Because a lot of the people who are on the course were in spiritual stuff for many decades. And the youngest one, she was in her 20s, I would say, an Australian girl. And then there was Larry, who was 87, who has been on that journey for many decades as well. And he was amazing. They were all amazing. They're lovely, lovely people. So, you feel like, you're part of it. But really, I think what it's done for me is that is kind of, if you think back to the Karate Kid, I am now Grasshopper to Mr. Miyagi, right? Unfortunately, I'm a 64-year-old Grasshopper. So that kind of, it's a little bit late, but it's not too late.
Not at all. Not at all. There's this meme online, or I don't know, some thing, and it talks about all the great people who made it after 50.
Mm.
Louise Hay was one of those. I think Louise
Oh,
Hay,
yeah.
56 years old, was when it finally kicked in for her. So it's never too late. And,
Yes.
I look around me and all the people that are living their lives they've got a little bit of gray hair. Now we've got these influencers, but you kind of got to get a little bit of knowledge and wisdom to
Mm.
get there sometimes.
Yeah. No, Louise, I know, was 60 years old when she set up Hay House Publishing.
See what I mean? You're right.
60. So, maybe there's something to this starting late malarkey. Anyway. So anyway, that's going to be it for this week. But definitely anybody who has curiosity around this, who wants to ask me questions about the workshop, about my experience with it, email me at johndrew@elevatedplanet.life, or anybody who wants to join our community. And as Jolé often tells us as well, we also have our Nos Populi community as well, which is we the people. So it's we the people stepping back into our power to create our world of unspeakable beauty. So would you say, Jolé, does that sound right?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to end it. Thank you so much to our audience, you guys. Much love and have a great week.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll see you in a week's time. Much love from me too. Take care.